attack in Istanbul shifting the focus on the campaign trail, certainly back to the fight against terrorism. Donald Trump taking a hardline stance on combating terror at a rally yesterday.
Can you imagine them sitting around the table or wherever they're eating their dinner, talking about the Americans don't do waterboarding and yet we chop off heads? They probably think we're weak, we're stupid, we don't know what we're doing, we have no leadership. You know, you have to fight fire with fire.
Meanwhile, in a statement yesterday, Hillary Clinton said the following, quote, "Today's attack in Istanbul only strengthens our resolve to defeat the forces of terrorism and radical jihadism around the world. It reminds us that the United States cannot retreat." Joining us now is Erick Erickson, editor of the Resurgent and a Fox News contributor, also a political analyst, and Donald Trump supporter David Wohl joining us. Gentlemen, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Erick Erickson, give us your characterization of the response from the candidates.
Well, you know, interestingly, I think both candidates responded more harshly and sternly than the administration. You listen to John Kerry's clip you played earlier. It seems like the administration has reached a point where they've just decided this is a new normal. And, of course, that hurts Hillary Clinton as they go out there since she was part of this administration. Donald Trump at least sounds like he wants to take a fight to ISIS as opposed to the administration that's decided, well, there's not a lot we can do because they only have to be right for an hour.
Well, this coming from the initial Never Trump guy, Erick Erickson. So it's interesting to hear you say that because I think a lot of people agree with that. Can Hillary, David Wohl, can Hillary separate herself from President Obama's reaction and policy toward terrorism?
No. In fact, it doesn't matter how many more of these horrific terrorist attacks take place, Maria. Hillary's painted herself into a corner of accepting more immigrants from hotbeds of Islamic terror up to a 550% increase. She wants to accelerate that immigration. She does not want to vet people because vetting them is not politically correct. She has her head in the sand. She's hoping for the best. And guess what? This is an existential battle against these people, and we can't afford to be wrong. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is going to suspend immigration from these countries, the hotbeds of Islamic terror, until there's an accurate and comprehensive vetting system in place, which may take years, but so what? These are American lives at risk. We can't afford another San Bernardino. We can't afford another Orlando. He's not going to let it happen. And, I mean, when you switch over to Benghazi for a second, it took us 13 hours in the Obama administration to act in that terror attack against Americans. I doubt Mr. Trump would take 13 minutes to order swift and aggressive action to save those men. The difference is just startling, and I think it's going to boil down to this fact that, hey, if we're not alive, the other issues in the election don't matter.
Erick, I want to ask you about that, about Hillary Clinton, and with the president clearly ready and willing and eager to campaign for her leading up until November. Does that hurt her? Because, again, more and more she's going to have to own what this administration has done, or rather what they have not done, to tackle and fight and prevent terror attacks from the Islamic State.
Well, you know, interestingly enough, I would love for it to hurt Hillary Clinton on the campaign trail. Remember back in 2000 when Al Gore was running, he didn't want Bill Clinton on the campaign trail. A lot of people thought that hurt him then in a very close election with George Bush. Unfortunately for Republicans, the more Donald Trump has been on the campaign trail, the higher Barack Obama's popularity has gone. There's almost a direct correlation to the unpopularity of Trump to the popularity of the president. Now, it's absurd in my mind that that's the case, but in fact that actually is the case. The president's popularity now averages 55% when just 8 weeks ago it was 49%.
Yeah, you're right. I don't understand that.
I mean, do you think that'll change? I feel like that has to change at some point, because I know when he speaks out about this, it's not going to be passionate like he talks about gun control. Like,
right. But
guys, we have two candidates. Neither one will say the words radical Islamic terrorism. They'll say variants of that phrase, but they won't use the phrase because it's offensive to some people, they believe, and that's their bottom line. That's their priority, making sure the image of Islam worldwide is portrayed in a favorable fashion. That's not our priority. That's not family's priority. That's not Mr. Trump's priority. His priority is protecting American lives. And push comes to shove, I think you're going to see a radical shift in the polls in the next 30 days. And God forbid this happens again.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
But if it does,
I mean, it didn't happen after Orlando.
The Quinnipiac poll out today actually does narrow the gap between the two, and that was taken after the most recent upset in Orlando, the fatality there. By the way, we should also point out that yesterday Hillary said it's time to move on beyond Benghazi. So right in the face of all of this, you know, the Benghazi report.
Look at her past record on handling this. Totally irrelevant.
I think the family members who lost their loved ones in that attack aren't moving on, Secretary.
Yeah, especially because she came out.
Can I just say that if this administration, if the media overall was not as biased as it is and in the tank to protect the precious of the Obama administration, the lead story this morning on the New York Times would be that the president, 50 days before an election, had the nonpartisan policy elements of his administration go out and lie to the American public when they knew darn well that it was actually an organized terrorist attack. They blamed a YouTube video. They threw the First Amendment under the bus to save the president's re-election campaign.
The New York Times in the lead said, well, this is finally over now. So even the media is saying it for her.
And the Democrats' Minority Report mentions Donald Trump 23 times. At least roughly 24 mentions of Donald Trump.
Stunning.
Rather than,
and I agree with David.
Rather than focusing on those who died. Those who died. That is shameful.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
And Dagan, you're right. It's spitting in the face of the families of those 4 men. It's just disgraceful, and it needs to be dealt with as such.
Gentlemen, thank you. Erick Erickson, David Wohl. We will see you soon, gentlemen. Thanks very much.